So, welcome back, guys. Part 3 of the hidden history of Japan. Uh, Sorry for the delay for those interested. Uh, and we are in section 1.5 where we left off previously. So, I will try to keep this under 12 minutes this time. Just a second. Let's see. Just a second. All right, so 12 minutes. All right, so 1.5. So let's get into it. The Chinese signed the September 1972 rapprochement with Japan and were astonished by the obvious extent of economic development there. They sent many delegations to Tokyo and asked the Japanese to share with them the secret of Japanese economic growth, which they eventually did. In the 1970s, The Economist described how many Chinese visitors were in Tokyo, uh, and they were really asking their Japanese hosts to inform them on how they achieved that level of economic growth. And here we go into a little bit of Shimamura's history. There was a possibility that Shimamura would have been considered for a Nobel Prize in the 1970s for economics, of course, but the economists never followed up on what happened subsequently, so we don't know what happened in regards to that. And then the Japanese Foreign Ministry on the 31st of August 1980 released a press statement stating that China will emerge as a tremendous economic and military power in the 21st century, and voila, here we are today, and it clearly is as they predicted. Uh, yeah, as like I stated, they came. My guess is because just the sheer size of China, I guess. Uh, the economic miracles of the four Tokyo Consensus Zone economies: Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and China. Of course, also the major ones. Were all founded upon the transfer of the economic understanding set out by Shimamura in 1952 and 1961 and first tested out in Manchuria. So they all share this characteristic. Their central bank is subservient, so it's either nationalized or its objective is to serve the government in power. Uh, with the desire to create large amounts of no-cost investment credit uh, to fund higher investment and faster growth. So clearly, investment is funding is key to investment and faster growth. And they all have a convoy system for convoying the centrally created investment credit down to intermediate banks. I'm assuming that's supposed to be intermediate banks to nearly all local SMEs and industries throughout the country. So if you're aware, SMEs are basically small medium enterprises, basically really small local companies and stuff that only hire a few people. So they all had or have an equivalent to Japan's economic planning agency to monitor and report to the prime minister or whoever is in charge about the economic progress occurring in the country or economy. They all have low interest rates and very low, very long terms of repayment on business loans. So I'm not an expert in that, but as Richard Werner states, low interest rates are have basically nothing to do, aren't responsible for growth rates, but the growth rates do have an effect on interest rates, GDP growth, that is. So they all know what they're doing and have had a conscious government policy of achieving high economic growth with minimal inflation, as Shimamura proved was possible in his 1952 publication, which earned him his PhD. So Shimamura also visited the United States in 1937 and in 1946. That provided him with the key numerical understanding of the capital output ratios in major U.S. industries at the time, and that was available to Japan through investment and credit creation to produce the economic miracles of the post-war period and the 1960s. So this guy Shimamura, he went in, got his hands dirty. After World War II, there was an American-funded businessman exchange program between Japan and the U.S. Many businessmen, Japanese ones, visited the U.S. on that program. So for Japan after the war, their official policy was economic growth, of course, and they needed to copy the best available production technologies for steel production, motor vehicle production, electricity production, and all that. So he either visited under the exchange program or as a continuation of the Bank of Japan's sponsorship of his 37 visit. So he was proud of his knowledge of the equipment output ratios, close to 1 of Japanese industries, and the capital output ratios, close to 3 for Japan in the 1960s, which underpinned his forecast of 10% economic growth in the 1960s. That's per annum, by the way. Other Japanese economists were less well informed, and his British and American counterparts don't even know about any of the capital output numbers of their domestic industries. So yeah, too realistic an item for the inhabitants of the castle in the clouds of neoclassical economics, aka neoliberal economics, to concern themselves about. Yeah. So what this equipment output ratios mean exactly? Basically, basically the production output for the equipment investment. That's basically what it is. So, and it's close to 1. Okay. So basically, for every equipment, one equipment is output of product of 1. And the capital output ratios, basically the profit, or not the profit but the price of the product. So about 3 times the amount of the actual production value itself during the 1960s, if I'm correct on that. And moving on from that, the Japanese maintained a policy of keeping the macroeconomic understanding of Shimamura macroeconomics, mouthful there, as a kind of state secret from 1945 until 2017, when I might butcher this name, but Koso Horuichi updated his internet article with the help of Development Bank of Japan Committee and produced a book after about a century of the first use of investment and credit creation economics in the Mentetsu. And after 72 years from the first 1945 use of that economic understanding in post-war Japan. So eventually the board formed an advisory committee to overview the publication on the 5th of September 2017. About a book authored by Koso Horuichi entitled, that basically. So we'll see his summary of the book. This is a very interesting book, obviously produced by a committee outdating Horichi's article previously published but now withdrawn from the internet. Uh, Vision for corporate behavior under zero economic growth and global environmental constraints. Shimomura's theory of the Japanese economy was still available on various locations. Sorry, on various locations on WorldCat, so that you can find it on that site there. This book attempts to redefine the great economic advances of Shimura as having a purely historical reference to the post-war Japanese economy. Uh, of course, that book is useless from an explanatory viewpoint. It tries to establish Shimamura where he should be as the second most important, second only to Keynes, economist of the 20th century. But although the book lists and explains what Shimamura did, there is no valid economic explanation about how he and Prime Minister Hiyato Ikeda or Ikeda, sorry for the pronunciations, and his successors actually did it. So basically, how they funded their development. The book continues Japan's historic policy of concealing as far as possible Dr. Shimura's complex system of economic understanding, perhaps because of the immense trading advantage that system enables. And it's also possible that Japanese no longer fully understand what Shimura did. So that's part 1.9 to go. I'll cover that in part 4 of the Hidden History of Japan series. And that being said, I'll see you guys next time.